So you're a music producer who just made a sweet beat and now you're thinking, this would sound epic with vocals on it. What do? Maybe one of your friends is a singer or a rapper and you ask them to record something, but if you're like me, when I was starting out in music, I didn't really know anyone that lived in my area that liked the same kind of music that I did. So what did I do? I went to the internet. Hey, I'm flowanastasia and I've been a vocalist for electronic music since 2011. I've been grateful to work with producers like Mephius, Nympho, Stranja, Galaxy, Talomic, and lots more. Today I'm teaming up with Stranja to give you some do's and don'ts for working with vocalists, how to reach out to them in the first place, and tips for a smooth collab process. Almost all of my collaborations have been done online, not in person, so I've been reflecting on what works best in the internet age, and I hope you find it helpful. Some of the tips might be helpful if you're a producer trying to work with another producer too. So with that said, let's get into it. So the first thing to figure out is, what do you actually want? If it doesn't matter who the vocalist is and you just want a unique vocal, I've heard of some online service platforms like Sound Better and Vocalizer and even Fiverr with a ton of singers and rappers who all have their portfolios on there and their rates. But maybe there's a specific vocalist whose music you really like. How do you reach out to them to start a collaboration? Well, here's what not to do. Don't leave comments on their social media posts that say, let's work, or let's collab with 6 question marks. Don't send them a direct message on every single social media platform on the same day. Don't send them a DM and follow up every single day until they see it. Don't send a super short message with only 1 sentence that says, wanna collab? And don't send a really, really long message that takes like 30 minutes to read. All of those examples have happened to me, and here's what I would recommend instead. First, figure out the best option to contact them directly and pick just one to start with. Some vocalists show their email on their website or their social media bio, and in my opinion, the best method is to try email first. Then, if they don't get back to you within 1 to 2 weeks, try to send them a direct message on another platform like Instagram, SoundCloud, Facebook, etc. You also don't need to comment on their social media posts saying, hey, check your messages, because chances are they will check their messages when they have a chance. So what should you say in your message? I'm going to provide an example draft in just a moment, but generally speaking, say hello. Mention why you're reaching out and briefly introduce yourself. If you've released music before, provide 1 or 2 links. I've had producers reach out to me with 0 information about themselves and just a 1-sentence email that says wanna collab, so I really had no idea who I was talking to or even how to find out more information about them. And if you're just starting out, that's okay too. Just briefly introduce yourself. Next, briefly talk about the music project that you'd like to work on. For example, you might have a super short, rough sketch or an already finished instrumental and you're looking for a vocal to go on top of it, sometimes called a top line. That's how I usually work, but I also know that some producers ask for an existing a cappella vocal and then create a piece of music around that. I very rarely work that way, but I know that a lot of producers and vocalists sometimes like to work that way instead. If you are sending an instrumental, don't send a video of your speakers playing. You'll want to send them something in proper audio quality, so consider sending a private SoundCloud link or a Dropbox link where they can stream it online. Personally, I prefer that method because if I'm getting a file from somebody I don't know, I get a little nervous downloading stuff, so I like private SoundCloud links or Dropbox links. After that, mention your thoughts about possible release plans for the song. For example, is it something that you're thinking to include on an album? Is it something that you might want to release independently or pitch to labels? Is it something you're thinking to do as a free download? And finally, just thank them for their time and consideration. Here's an example message draft, and feel free to take a screenshot if it helps. Let's say they get back to you and they say they're too busy. Thank them for their time and ask when it might be okay to check back in. Or maybe they say they're not interested. I still think you should respond and say thanks. It was nice that they took the time to respond to you and maybe a possible connection in the future. You don't want to burn any bridges. In any of these cases, don't make them feel bad about it. If I couldn't do a project, I've had producers say things to me like, oh, that sucks, that's a shame, would have been so cool, and honestly, even if you feel that way, it doesn't really help to make me feel guilty about it. Also, some vocalists might respond and tell you that they charge a specific rate. Maybe it's a buyout or an advance or a specific royalty split. You can ask them more questions about it if it's not clear, but in any case, if you're not comfortable with the rate, don't make them feel bad about that either. For example, laughing at them if you think the rate is too high isn't very respectful, so just let them know it's not in your budget and thank them again for their time. Of course, in some cases, vocalists may never even respond to you, and in which case, that's okay. Move on, try someone else. But what happens if a vocalist responds to you and they say they're interested and they're ready to get started? First off, I'll say, as we all know, art is subjective and everyone's creative process is a little bit different. Some of my advice in this next section is more general and some is based on my personal style, so take it as a suggestion, not an absolute rule. So now you've started a conversation with a vocalist and you're both ready to dive into the project. At this stage, it's important that you give some more specific direction to the vocalist. And that might be no direction at all. Maybe you just want them to go with the flow, see how they feel, and then work that way. Or perhaps you have some specific lyrical subjects that you want to explore, or you only want vocals in the drop section of a song, for example. You might also consider sending them 1 or 2 reference tracks of songs that you like to give them an idea of the overall sense of direction. If you do that, let them know what you actually like about the reference track. Is it, for example, an introspective lyrical theme? Is it an upbeat energy of a hook? It's also a good idea to let them know of an approximate timeline for the project if you have one. For example, if you're working on an album for a label, you should make them aware that you have a deadline. Or if you are flexible, perhaps ask them how long they think they might take, and then that'll set your own expectation and you'll know when to follow up if needed. Generally speaking, I think it's important that you both are very clear on the vocalist process as well. So you should ask, how do they like to work? For example, do they record their vocals at home by themselves and they can do multiple recording sessions as needed? Or will they record a rough demo at home first, have you review it, and then go to a studio to record the final version? As you can probably tell by now, I think communication is the most important part of any creative collaboration. So to avoid any confusion and disappointments and to set your expectations, always communicate. At any stage of the collaboration, you can also suggest other methods of communication beyond just text. For example, you might want to schedule a quick Skype or Zoom call to ask about the vocalist process or convey a little bit more of your direction, if you find it easier to express yourself that way. Personally, I don't always like Zoom calls unless I already know the person a little bit better. I absolutely love voice memos on Instagram or WhatsApp, since they can be listened to at any time and then I can get back whenever I have a chance. My collabs might start with an email and then migrate over to voice note communication. Another general tip is just to try to stay organized with your file naming and email subject lines. Avoid generic email subjects like updates or collab. You can imagine how hard it might be to find that specific email later if your entire inbox is just collab. Consider more specific email subjects like collab X, work in progress, song title. Same thing with your files if you're sending updated music demos. Consider adding a version number or a date to your files, just so everything becomes more clear and organized when you're trying to find something later. Let's say the vocalist has recorded a rough demo and wants your feedback on it before they record the final version or keep writing. What happens if you don't like it? I would suggest to give them something called a feedback sandwich. When you start with some positive feedback and thank them for their efforts, then talk about your constructive criticism, what they could improve more specifically, and then end with some more positive notes. I know that in some countries it's more common to be very blunt with your feedback and offer no padding, but you might be working with people worldwide, and ultimately I think that as artists we're all mostly sensitive, so at least thank the person for their efforts and the heart and time that they put into the thing, and then move on to your constructive criticism. Okay, now let's say the vocalist has finished the track, you absolutely love everything, and you're ready to finish the collab. Once you're done, be sure to send them the finished track before you do anything with it or send it to any labels. I've had a couple cases where I've asked for the vocal timing to be slightly adjusted in a couple spots, or for the EQ processing to be changed a little bit. Especially if the vocalist's name is going to be on the project, you're going to want to make sure that they're happy with it too. You could also come up with the final song title together, or maybe you already have one in mind that you really like, get them to approve it just in case, maybe they already have a song with that title from years ago, or maybe they have some ideas for you. After all, it keeps with the spirit of collaboration because you've created something cool together. Just a couple quick things to mention here before we wrap up. Once you've finished the track, it's really important to keep the vocalist looped in on all of your plans. For example, if you're getting artwork done that includes their name on it, have them take a look at the artwork when it's done. I had a scenario where my name was misspelled on music artwork, and luckily I caught it before it went live. Similarly, if you're pitching the track to labels or releasing it independently, make sure the vocalist is looped in on all of the communications. Let them know about possible release dates, link to their correct artist profiles, tag them on social media, etc. Finally, no matter what happens, don't ghost. Let's say you've been pitching the song to labels for many months and haven't had any success, and then the vocalist asks you for an update. Don't ignore them, just be honest. Let's say you lost the whole project on a faulty hard drive, or maybe you're having some personal challenges in your life. Don't ignore the vocalists, don't ghost them for months and months. I've had all these scenarios happen to me, and it would have just been good to know what happened instead of wondering. On a more positive note, we're all just trying to create art and express ourselves, and collaboration can be a really beautiful and exciting thing. I hope this video has had some helpful nuggets for you, and if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer, so just leave a comment here. Also, if you're looking for vocals and you don't want to go through a whole process like this, I've just released my debut vocal sample pack exclusively through Strangia. You can find audio demos and more information through the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best with your creations.
Check, check, drum and bass.